Welcome, everyone, to the Predictive Playbook. This is a terrific show. You know why? Because I have Jesse Schule and Dr. Chuck, two of my favorite guys from SportsMemo.com. Brilliant minds in sports handicapping. And the reason I can say that is that we are 9-1 against the spread over the last 2 weeks in college football on this show. 100% transparency. You can look at the shows from the last 2 weeks, and I believe you will come up with the same number. So enough of the bragging. We're happy that you guys are taking the time to view these quick hitting segments. We have 3 picks coming up for you. I'm going to start things off here with a play in the SEC. As most people know, the SEC and the Big Ten are kind of my two favorite conferences to bet on. It's not to say I don't get involved with the MAC or the other ones. It's just that the large majority of my picks will occur in those two conferences. And lo and behold, Kentucky now ranked number 16 in the nation, coming off a huge win hosting Florida last week. I think it was the last time they beat them. Noah's Ark was just running aground. And seriously, I mean, what a big win. They were outstatted seriously, though. They only gained 137 yards, and they passed for 87 on 7 for 17. So they only ran 47 plays to 63 for Florida. So the Kentucky defense played marvelously well, if not sensational. Each team had a turnover in that game. So I don't view Kentucky's being outstatted in the box score as a big concern here. They're going up against an LSU team now. It's coming off a loss to Auburn, 24-19, as a 3-point home favorite. And that's not a good situation at all for LSU coming into Kentucky for this week. And Kentucky is, let's see here, 23 or LSU, yeah, Kentucky's 23-6 in road games. I'm sorry, that's the wrong stat. They're 12-2 after being outrushed by 125 or more yards in the last game. And lastly, from my predictive models that I ran, the line plus the models project that Kentucky will score 28 or more points. And in past games, they are 11-3 over the last 3 seasons, 92-40 against the number over the last 20 seasons. LSU 5-7 against the number last 3 years, 20-78 against the spread the past 20 seasons when they have allowed 28 or more on the road. So I say this is a real Kentucky team this year. I think they win this game by at least a touchdown, if not double digits. Now we're going to move on to Jesse Schule here, Florida State, taking on North Carolina. Very interesting game here. And boy, have times changed for both programs. Over the last 21 meetings, Florida State is 16-3 with 2 ties, 11-10 against the number dating back to 1983. Only 3 times has Florida State been an underdog. 2 of those have occurred in the last 2 years. Florida State was 13.5-point home dog and defeated UNC last year, 31-28. Now in back-to-back years, they find themselves again installed as a double-digit 17.5-point whopping dog with a posted total of 63.5 points. This is the largest that UNC has ever been favored against the Noles. So Jesse, tell us where you're heading with this ACC matchup.
Well, John, I'm looking at Florida State plus the 17.5 points. As you mentioned, the Seminoles won outright last year as a 13.5-point underdog. But more than that, if you look at the last 4 meetings, all 4 of those games have been decided by 3 points or less, dating back to 2009. The Tar Heels came into the season pretty highly ranked, but after a 3-2 start, I don't think they're nearly as good as they were last year. They've still got the great quarterback, but I don't think he's got enough weapons around him, and their defense isn't good enough to be a 17.5-point favorite against a team like Florida State. Of course, it was a disappointing start to the season for Florida State, going 0-4. There was some positivity after a close game against Notre Dame, but people were calling for the coach's head after that. 3 of those 4 losses, though, were games decided by 1 score, and the Tar Heels, they're coming off a win over Duke, a big win over Duke, but they lost 45-22 to Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech's quarterback ran for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. And that interests me because the Tar Heels defense seems to be a little weak against the run. They're ranked 9th in the ACC versus the run. They've allowed 8 rushing touchdowns in 5 games. They're allowing about 143 yards per game on the ground. And particularly, they seem to struggle against quarterbacks running the football. Now, Jordan Travis can be a dual threat. He threw for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Seminoles' first win of the season over Syracuse last week, but he ran for 113 yards as well. I'm looking for Jordan Travis to have a pretty big game here against North Carolina, and I think the Seminoles can hang in there and keep it a 1 or 2 score game.
Yeah, I like that idea, Jesse. This seems to be way too many points for a Florida State team that has fallen on rough times. The late Bobby Bowden era is long gone, and the glory days of Florida State, it's going to take a while to get back to those levels. But I like to play for this week, plus 17.5 currently by Jesse Schule, taking the Florida State Seminoles. Now we're going to move way out west to the Mountain West. We have San Jose State, 3-2, 1-0 in Mountain West Conference action, taking on Colorado State, who is 1-3, and first game in the Mountain West Conference for them. They're going to be playing at Canvas Stadium in Fort Collins, Colorado. The line is Colorado State -2, over under 45.5. And this Colorado State team was actually a 10-star winner for me against Iowa. They covered by 13.5 points. So I find this line like pretty surprising and pretty difficult to understand. But I bet you Dr. Chuck is going to explain everything and where we should put our money on this game.
Well, thank you, John. Yeah, and you guys didn't ask my opinion, but I love the Kentucky, and nobody loves a nasty dog like Florida State more than me, especially when you're getting a bunch of points like that. So a couple of great plays. So I think, and it's funny that you said you were confused by that line after your win against Iowa, and I think people sloughed off the Iowa game and figured Iowa was, not worried about that, and maybe wasn't playing a quality opponent that lost outright to South Dakota State at home to open the season, and then followed that up by losing at home to Vanderbilt. So Adazio's second season did not start off well, but he just has a great defense. By all metrics, even with those losses, the defense ranks top 15 in just about all metrics, and as high as like top 10 and top 5, in drive efficiency, defensive drive efficiency against opponents. They run the ball, they play tough defense at altitude in Fort Collins. They had a week off after the Iowa game to come back home, where they haven't won yet this season. Did get a nice win against Toledo after those 2 tough losses at home. And I think, as much as it's not a win against Iowa. They went into the half up by a touchdown. I think caught Iowa off guard with how, hard-nosed their defense is, and held them to like 4 yards per play. Iowa's not a all-world offense, but then again, I was ready to fade Iowa last week, and they hammered Maryland on the road, and so we might have to reassess how decent Iowa might be on both sides of the ball. So San Jose State's coming off that game where they kind of barely beat New Mexico State. New Mexico State covered that by more than 2 touchdowns, and they're just not going to keep up. They're a pass-heavy offense that won't be able to run the ball anyway, and the Rams are going to be able to play nothing but pin their ears back and San Jose State try to run. We're just picking a winner here, basically. If you got this earlier, you can get a money line at -120. You can get probably -1.5 or -2, and it's just they're going to suffocate that Spartans offense that I think people think is prolific, and I think they're thinking of last season, and I think they're combining what they remember about the Spartans from last season with what they remember about Colorado State from early September, and I think we get that line kind of like last week with Minnesota. It's just not right, and I think this should have been 5 or 6 to open, and so just to get it anywhere near Pick'em, which is where I think Circa opened it, is just kind of silly and the way to go.
Yeah, I like the breakdown. I too thought it was cheap at -2. I had to do a head scratch. Like, well, is it injuries? No. I mean, it just seems to be a very cheap price. And I love your idea on the money line. I think that's the way to go if you can get it at -120, folks. So there you have it. We have our 3 plays. I am on Kentucky minus a few points. Jesse is on Jesse is on
Florida State.
Florida
Seminole.
State. Wow. Jesse's on Florida State plus 17.5 currently. Dr. Chuck on
Down to
Colorado
like
State minus a couple, or the money line at minus 120 or lower. So thanks for helping me out with those picks, guys. Thanks for your time. And to everyone who's watching these, we really appreciate you coming on board and taking your valuable time to listen to us. At a 9-1 record, we feel it's a very valuable show, and our growth rates kind of reflect that right now. So let's just keep it rolling. Thanks a lot for watching, and may all the wins be yours.